Hello, friends. Welcome back. I've decided that this episode will be the beginning of season two of the Field Notes podcast. It's pretty arbitrary, but it felt like the trip to Switzerland was felt like a culmination of something or a threshold. So maybe you'll join me in marking the threshold betwixt seasons one and two, with just a breath we can take together entering into this conversation. I'm just going to take a nice slow breath in and release it. So I'm recording this just for the record on September 19th. It's been a very intense week in the world of public events. And it's also been intense coming back from Switzerland in ways that neither Julia, my wife, and I really anticipated. I think the trip to Switzerland and spending time in that kind of social fabric and public infrastructure really threw a lot of things in relief for us, and so we're we're integrating that and seeing what guidance it has for us. I think what I wanted to talk about and what I was excited to share with you is that earlier today I got to teach one of my favorite things, which is this workshop I developed called the library, which it kind of blends a bunch of different modalities. But the way that I described it in the workshop is, imagine if you hold out your hands, and in your left hand or on your left side, there is kind of our day to day lives, our concrete reality, concrete world where we pay taxes and health insurance and try out new recipes and all that kind of stuff. And then on our right hand side, is the vast field of consciousness, the vast field of everything, where every little vibration, every bit of information that has ever been, that is ever vibrating right now, and that ever will be, just kind of exists in a completely disorganized way, right? We can't really parse the field or comprehend it. Most of us can't. My sense is that there are people who, we may diagnose with autism and things like that, who actually can sense into it. But if you're listening to this, you probably can't. So all of that information is just out there. And then from time to time, we all get hits of intuition. We all get these moments where we know something that we simply can't have known, right? It might be, I've talked to a lot of people who have dreams that somebody close to them has passed away or something big has happened to them as it's happening. And they wake up and find out that it was real. Or they kind of get an intuitive hit to turn in one direction or to take one flight over the other that ends up that was an important choice. Those are moments, in the way that I think of it, that vast field of information is kind of communicating, but it's pretty unpredictable for most of us. Or sometimes we get information and we can't interpret it. So anyway, the whole idea behind the library is that the library sits squarely between these worlds, right? The library is a place that we can enter into anytime we want to. And when we do, it's like we're entering a little clean room or a container that has an entrance from our world and filters in information from the vast field of consciousness, and we can query it, right? Just like checking out books from our library. So one of the things I love about the library as a construct for this kind of work, as opposed to something like, the Akashic Records, which is a modality that can feel a bit like the library, is that we all love libraries. We all have memories of libraries. There's something both incredibly mundane about libraries as places to store books, and there's also something magical. Folks in the workshop today and in previous iterations shared that libraries are places that are like portals to other realms. Every time we open a book, every time the library I grew up going to had a little basement room that they used to show movies. And it was where I was first introduced to one of my favorite movies, The Red Balloon. If you've never seen it, I think it's on YouTube. It's beautiful. But whatever it is, anytime we watched a movie or listened to a story, it was a doorway to another world that we could visit without physically going anywhere. For other folks, it's a place where we experience community or where public services were available, right? Restrooms, water, after school programs. So libraries are more than just books, more than just knowledge. They are places where we gather, sanctuaries. For some of us, they're temples of knowledge and exploration. So when in the library workshop, we have the chance to work with our imagination and co-create with that vast information field our own libraries. It's not just about information, it's about having a safe place to go, a powerful place to go, where we can access all of this information. And what's really cool about it is, in my experience of it and in walking probably upwards of 50 people through the process in just the past year, is that everybody's library is completely individual to them, and the way that they receive information from the library and from books is different. Some people have a very emotional experience. Others have a sensory experience. It's a felt sense of information. Some people get visual information or words, whatever it is. It's our imagination, our natural capacity to communicate with the vast field of information around us that awakens and has a place to play in a really safe playground within the construct of this library that we make. And it brought me, especially in a moment where there is so much external chaos in the world and so much parsing or parsing out of information in ways that are divisive through social media, through the internet, that there is this place, this library, where we have access to raw information, to just pure vibration, and that each and every one of us naturally has the capacity to access that and to develop the capacity of discernment that's necessary to distinguish between information that we are perceiving or being given in the library and information that we're projecting. This is one of my favorite distinctions to work with. So a question that will often come up when I'm working with someone, either in the library, which I realize I'm sort of talking, it's experiential. So if you're listening and you haven't done it, I think there's 5 people who listen to this and 3 of you have done it. So you know what I'm talking about. Uh, for everyone else, just it's awesome. Let me know and I'll invite you to the next workshop. Let me know if you're interested. But one of the questions that often comes up in the library space or any kind of guided visualization is, how can I tell if I'm just making this up or if it's really information that's coming to me? And there's a couple ways. One is if it's what we expect, right? Or if we have predefined what the information is. Usually that's going to be projection. And the way we can tell we're doing that is if everything is just feels like it's coming from the mind, right? So if I invoke that state in myself, my eyebrows are knitting together, the muscles of my head are starting to kind of activate, because we can only project from the prefrontal cortex, right? From the most recently evolved part of our brains. The body doesn't really enter into it. The senses don't really enter into it. So that's projection. Generally, the way we can tell if we're perceiving something is if it's surprising. If it comes out of left field and we're like, oh, wait, what? I would never come up with that. If we're in a kind of dialogue with it that goes beyond confirmation. And the other way is that perception tends to be a full body activity. So When I'm perceiving, my eyeballs are relaxed in the sockets. I may feel a looseness in my jaw, a looseness in my shoulders, and my senses may be active. When I'm in my library, I perceive things sometimes visually, and often it'll just start with an energetic or felt sense in the body. And the invitation with perception, whether it's in the library or any other space that's imaginal like that, any of these liminal spaces of exploration, the invitation is always to see if we can just stay with the sensation or stay with the sense without labeling it, without storying it, right? So sometimes in the library, I may get like a tightness in my belly, and I'll go, oh, that's anxiety. And then I'll start interpreting and projecting and pop right back into my head, my eyebrows knit together, and I'm figuring things out. It tends to work better, and we'll get more useful information if we simply allow our attention to be relaxed and receptive, aware, relaxed, and receptive, which is an easy thing to say. And without a reliable process or structure, it's difficult to do, because generally, if you just think of those two words, relaxed and aware, generally, we are either on one side of that uh, divide or the other. Like, if we're too relaxed, we're not aware. And if we're too aware, we're not relaxed. So, one of the key things that we learn in the library process and these workshops is how to bring ourselves into a state of relaxed awareness so that our perception can wake up, so that we can interact more deeply and fully with our imagination, with the field of information, with our own senses. It's really such a beautiful experience to witness people playing in this really simple, powerful way. One of the things that I shared in today's workshop, that I think one of the reasons it's felt important to me this year to begin sharing the library method, let's call it, the library approach. I don't know if you come up with a better name for it, let me know. More widely, is that in this moment that we're in, we've been told and are increasingly being told that AI has been trained, right, on all of the information available. But if you think about it, not even very hard. That's not true. It's been trained on written and visual information. If it's music, it's been trained on audio information, but it has to have been trained on documented information. It hasn't been trained on the field of consciousness. It can't be. And for the most part, it's been trained on materials that were developed by a culture, Western culture, that one of its core characteristics is a, a separation from consciousness, right? That the culture that we're inside of has been constructed around this core belief that we as humans are somehow superior to or better than nature, right? That trees don't have anything to contribute to our conversation. And in terms of AI, they can't, because they don't write, they don't sing, they don't make movies. And one of the things that the library gives us access to in a simple, almost universally accessible way that doesn't require any kind of particular cosmology or spiritual belief system. But one of the things that the library gives us access to is information that goes way beyond what AI can offer. One of the distinctions I like to um, work with is the distinction between thin information and thick information. What we get when we work with AI, what we get when we work with linear strategy, right, is very thin information. It's information that is true, usually, sometimes, and it's not bad information, but it exists on a one dimensional plane. It's linear. In the library, we get access to thick or dense information that exists on many different levels of dimensionality simultaneously. I had a direct experience of this earlier this year when in my library, one of the practices I do is I went into my library and I checked out my book of the year in January, the book of 2025. And I got the title of it. And one of my favorite practices is to go in there every day and to look at my book of the year and flip to my page of the day first thing in the morning and get a message that I then write down in a special journal. I did this. I'd love to be able to tell you that I do this every day. I definitely don't, but I did it for pretty much the month of February. And it was really supportive during that month. And then in June, some pretty significant personal stuff happened. I think I've alluded to it way back in season 1, but the details aren't important. What is important for this conversation is that I found myself looking back at my pages of the day from February, and they seemed to speak directly to the moment that I was having in June in ways that were too direct to be coincidental. And I showed it to Julia, and she was like, "Oh my God, that's actually somewhat creepy, right? That these messages seem to have been planted in February so that you would find them in June." The field of information that we access in the library is not attached to chronological time. It's dense, thick information. We can access it today, and it speaks to us across months, across decades. It crosses senses. It may be a combination of psychological, strategic, emotional. And we are not used to taking in or receiving information in that way. So it can be a little bit disorienting, which is why doing this work as a group at first is really powerful. So I'm excited. I'm excited that I get the chance to share the library with people. And I'm always excited to just like watch them discover this incredible magical place that can be whatever they need it to be. And it's theirs, and no one can ever come and take away. And that exists beyond, beneath, alongside of, or around the kind of tumult of the day-to-day world. So I'll leave it there with a lot of gratitude that I get to steward this library practice, method, I don't know what to call it, at this moment where there seems to be so much information and not a lot of it is great. Thanks for listening. Welcome to season 2. And I look forward to continuing our explorations together. Thanks for listening.